Sword of the Demon Hunter. Our story starts off in the year 1830. In our opening scene, we just hear this little girl screaming, crying for help, but her father just smacks her to the ground. This is all going down while this girl's older brother is just helplessly watching from the side. As the father picks her up by her hair, he begins dragging her outside. She's continuing to beg for help, continuing to scream and just begging for mercy, but to no avail. He just takes her outside, throwing her inside of this shed and locks it as she just sits there in despair all alone. Later that night, as rain begins to pick up, her brother, whose name is Jinta, runs out there to check up on her, but when he opens the door to the shed, he finds nothing. He drops his umbrella, running at full speed to go and find his sister, worried that something might have happened to her while she was stuck out here. He's screaming her name, Suzune, over and over until he can't scream nor run any longer. But finally, there he sees his little sister standing in the middle of the street, drenched in rain. As she looks back, we can see that her right eye, once covered in bandages, is now revealing a glowing red eye. Clearly different than her other one and everybody else that we've seen so far. And it turns out that this is the exact reason why her father was treating her like this. Suzune is half demon. He doesn't claim her at all. He doesn't believe her to truly be one of his children and doesn't see her as family. But unlike his father, Jinta doesn't see her this way. He instantly runs up to her, apologizing for not doing anything earlier, for just sitting back and letting all of this happen. But she doesn't hold anything against him. She actually wants him to leave. She doesn't want to be seen with them out of fear that he might get in trouble for being around her. But instead of leaving alone, Jinta decides to go together. He grabs her hand and they run and run for as long as they can until Suzune needs to stop and get some rest. As they take cover under this abandoned little structure, he's doing his best to keep her warm and make sure that she doesn't get sick out here in the rain, when out of nowhere, this wandering man extends his hand, offering them his help. With nobody else to rely on and nowhere to go, they accept. The next thing that we see is Jinta waking back up. He's being carried by this man, piggyback style, as he's leading Suzune and Jinta back to his home village. This village is a village built for blacksmiths. Most of them were raised to either forge swords or wield them. As they make it back to this man's home, he opens the door and is instantly greeted by his daughter, who seems to be about the same age as Jinta. After she welcomes him back home, she finally notices the two kids standing behind him, and he tells her that they're kids who need a new home. So from now on, they're gonna be living with us. At first, she sounded confused, looked like she couldn't even believe this man was really letting these strangers into the crib, but she was actually pretty hyped in order to have some new people around, as she makes her formal introduction to the two. Her name is Shirayuki. Jinta introduces himself and Suzune is pretty hesitant at first, but she also does the same shortly after. Shirayuki's giving them a very warm welcome, officially solidifying that from now on, they'll all be family. Looking at Jinta and Suzune's expressions, we can see two completely opposite emotions. Jinta's at a loss for words, seemingly stunned after this short interaction with her, while Suzune doesn't look too happy at all. Though it's only natural, given what she had just come from. She's not going to be so quick to get all buddy-buddy with these random people. She's just holding on to her brother for dear life, as he's the only one that she really knows she can count on. During their first night there, we see that Jinta was having some trouble sleeping, so he's just up talking with the man who saved him, Motoharu. Judging from how he carries a sword around him at all times, Jinta had thought that he was a samurai, but not quite. He corrects him, saying that he's not a samurai, but a village sentinel, a man who gets assigned for defending important items or people. On their first morning, we get to see that Jinta is up training with Motoharu, learning how to wield a sword. I guess these kids ain't got no type of school or nothing, because we see that for the entire day, they're all just having fun. The three of them go to this nearby river and are playing around over there when they're joined by this other girl, Chitose, which is one of Shirayuki's friends. After a whole day of doing pretty much nothing, they're on their way home, walking through the village with Chitose and Shirayuki up in the front, with Jinta following close behind, carrying Suzune on his back. They're just chatting it up when, out of nowhere, Chitose's mom calls out to her. So she says bye to the gang and heads back to her mom, back to her house, as everybody else is just looking on. On their way back to their house, Jinta brings up Shirayuki's mom. If you notice at the crib, she was nowhere to be found. Before Jinta and Suzune showed up, it was only Shirayuki and Motoharu staying there. The reason that it's only them two and her mother doesn't stay in the house is that she's actually a very important figure within the village. She was one of the main ones who had decided to let Jinta and Suzune be adopted into the village in the first place, though they never had gotten to meet her. Shirayuki's mother lives, sleeps, and eats in this shrine because she's the Itsukihime, which is basically some type of holy princess to the shrine and to the village. They don't really explain too much, but she's holding a position very closely related to their culture and to their gods, so she's not allowed to leave the shrine. And the only people that are even allowed to come see her are the village chief and her personal sentinel, which just happens to be her husband, Motoharu. Shirayuki explains that it's been years even since she saw her, but not wanting to dwell on it for too long, they just make their way home. Fast forward and we get a quick little time skip to a couple years down the line. Everybody's still living here, nothing crazy has really gone on. The year is 1833. We just get a view of Jinta continuing to do his training with Motoharu, but is getting frustrated with his lack of progress. It seems as if he's not getting any better, though he's already been training for years at this point. But Motoharu reassures him that his work is not going to waste. He's explaining to Jinta that nothing is forever. Day by day, it may seem as if no progress is being made, but in reality, growth always happens in small increments. If you're too focused on the current, you'll never have time to step back and realize the progress that you've made. But he's assuring Jinta that he just has to stick with it, and soon enough, he'll recognize the difference. Motoharu leaves to go do what he gotta do as the princess's sentinel. After Shirayuki sees him off, she goes to comfort Jinta a little bit, give him a little pat on the head, saying that he's gonna be alright because she's here to cheer him up. He's once again stunned, just looking at her, blushing, when out of nowhere, Suzune pops up. He's mad flustered because he was caught off guard. He's crushing on Shirayuki a little bit, but Suzune didn't pick up on any of that. Her and Shirayuki just both offer him a hand to get up. Now, bear with me real quick. We go into another time skip, a real one this time. Jinta is fully grown now. He's currently in the middle of being praised for his courage and strength as a village sentinel. We see that he's finally grown into this position that Motoharu once held and is helping defend the village from these man-eating monsters, these demons who are continuing to pop up. He explains to the princess that his most recent fight was with a monster who disguised to be a human. We see that the village chief is speculating on what could have been happening. It turns out the previous Itsukihime, Shirayuki's mother, was eaten by one of these demon man-eating monsters. He explains that these monsters can live for centuries. Their life cycle is much longer than a regular human's, and the monster that killed the Itsukihime was a problem for a while. Turns out he was only defeated after her sentinel, Motoharu, had given everything he had in battle, dying at the very end. The princess realizes that they must be going after the village's sacred sword, the Yakai, a sword that's passed down from the Itsukihime for generations. The village chief is worried about the princess's safety, but his son, Kiyomasa, is over here trying to calm him down. He's also the princess's sentinel alongside Jinta. They went ahead and upped the security after what happened to the last one, so he's mad confident that everything's gonna be fine. But he's a little bit arrogant. I don't know if it's jealousy or what, but he's throwing shade at Jinta, saying that he's no good at anything but swinging his sword around, which, honestly, thinking about it, is not even an insult. That's literally his job. He's supposed to swing his sword around. He's supposed to kill demons. If anything, it just make Kiyomasa sound weak, make him sound jealous, but you know how these type of people be, bro. They just be talking just to talk. But both his father and the princess cut out the little beef that he was trying to start, as they all decide to end the meeting there. As everybody leaves, Jinta ends up staying. The princess asks if he's the only one left, and after he confirms, she says, finally, now we can drop all of the formalities. She steps out of her sacred little room, and we see, of course, Shirayuki. She's taken the spot of Itsukihime since her mother's passing, and it's fitting that Jinta had taken the spot of Motoharu as her sentinel. She steps out and we can just see this majestical aura about her now. And as her sentinel, Jinta's worried about her stepping outside of her little enclosure. But Shirayuki's tired of all this fancy talk and being super proper. At the end of the day, she's just a girl from the village. She grew up with Jinta, so she feels no need to keep things so uptight. They end up chatting for a little bit, and Shirayuki brings up that Suzune is also here again. As Jinta walks into her room, we see Suzune lying there asleep, but obviously she's not any bit bigger than what she was back then, back when Shirayuki and Jinta were kids. Jinta's getting upset because this area is supposed to be strictly forbidden, but Shirayuki's explaining that she probably only came here to see Jinta. It's been a few days that he's been out hunting this demon, so she probably just got a little impatient. As he wakes her up, she's ecstatic to see him, and Jinta's trying to stay upset, but we can see he's too loving of a big brother to really stay mad at her for long, so he lets her off the hook easy. But suddenly, they hear somebody walking up. They're all beginning to panic because it's strictly forbidden to have other people inside of this room with the Itsukihime, but Suzune quickly runs off, saying that she knows a way to get out. She makes her leave by the time that the visitor makes it to the shrine, and turns out the visitor was the village chief. As he makes his way in, he looks at Jinta off to the side, asking him to leave so that him and the princess can talk in private. Jinta doesn't want to because the sentinel is always supposed to be by her side. That's one of the main reasons that they switched to having 2 sentinels in the first place. But apparently the village chief had made a private offer to the princess and would prefer to discuss it in private. Jinta still doesn't want to, but he's excused by the princess herself, saying that it's okay. And as he makes his way out, we get a quick flashback to a few scenes of the past. We see the funeral ceremony of Motoharu and his wife, the previous Itsukihime. We can see that of everybody who's there at the service, Shirayuki is the one who's standing the most tall. Typically, you would expect her to be the most down. It's both her mother and her father's funeral, but she seems to be very confident in whatever's going through her brain right now. And we get to see later that night that she was so upright, standing so tall, because that's when she decided to take on the duty of becoming the Itsukihime. It wasn't forced onto her, but I'm assuming she was next in line since she directly shared blood with the previous one, but she knew that by becoming the Itsukihime, she would never be able to see Jinta again. But at this time, for Shirayuki, this is when Jinta solidified his resolve to become strong enough to become her sentinel in the same way that Motoharu was for the previous one. She's following in her footsteps and he's following in his. Back to the present, Jinta makes his way out the shrine and we fast forward to seeing these 2 demons. They're sitting up top a tree, lurking in the shadows, watching someone. They say that there's no doubt about it. It's her. She's the one. And as we see who they're watching, it turns out to be Suzune. The next morning, Jinta's just chilling at the crib. Apparently, he doesn't need to be up at the shrine for anything up until noon. So Suzune's enjoying the opportunity of him finally being home. But suddenly, walking through the door is Shirayuki. Jinta's instantly panicking because she's not supposed to ever leave that shrine, but apparently she got permission from the chief, so she wants Jinta to spend the day with her. So the 3 of them sit down to all eat breakfast together, just as they did when they were all growing up. And by the time that they finish, Jinta and Shirayuki get ready to spend the day out in the village. But oddly enough, out of the 3 of them, Suzune's the one who's the most excited. Jinta's a little bit confused because Suzune's staying at home, but she's explaining how happy it makes her that Jinta's having fun. And it's pretty much saying that as long as he's happy, she's gonna be happy. So they end up making their way on, but as they're leaving, we can see that Suzune might have been holding back a little bit of the truth. She seems to be playing it cool for the sake of Jinta and being nice to him, but she also seems pretty jealous that she doesn't ever get to spend time with him anymore. And the one day that he's free of his duties as Sentinel, he's gonna spend it all day with Shirayuki. But anyways, back in the town, Jinta and Shirayuki are walking through and everybody's shocked at who this strange person is. Remember, she never leaves the shrine and isn't allowed to make contact with the regular townspeople, so none of them have seen her since she was a child, if they were even living in the village by then. They end up visiting Chitose's shop and order some food, but even Chitose doesn't recognize her since it's been so long that they've even talked. Shirayuki seems pretty down about it, but this was all part of her resolve when she had made the decision to become the Itsukihime. This is just part of it. It just sucks that she's actually gotten a chance to come out into the town and all the people that she had grown up with as a child don't even recognize her. Also, I'm pretty sure she's not allowed to tell anybody that it's her. Maybe for her safety or part of her agreement with the village chief, I don't know, but there's definitely a sense of loneliness on her end as well. But out of the need to fulfill her duties for what she decided for herself and for her family, for the village, this is what she's got to go through. Chitose brings out their order, but it's just overall acting awkward when talking to Jinta. She's trying her best to be real formal and proper, and we can just tell that things are different from when they were younger. Shirayuki's out the picture, Chitose's grown and running what was once her mother's shop, and Jinta's now the village sentinel. There's a sense of respect that he's earned as the village sentinel, and since they've fallen out of touch, it's just overall an awkward interaction between the three of them. But after having food at Chitose's shop, we get to the end of their day as they make their way back to the river. That same river where Shirayuki had told Jinta that she was going to become the Itsukihime. She says that the main reason that she even stepped away from the shrine in the first place was so that she could have a heart-to-heart with Jinta right now. She has some news to share with them, explaining that she's deciding to marry Kiyosama, the son of the chief. Turns out that the other day, when the chief had went in to have that conversation with her, he was lecturing her that she needs to have a child soon. Since demons are after her life, she has to give birth to a successor. And since Kiyosama is a sentinel already and was born in the village, also being next in line to become the village chief, it just makes sense. A child of both the Itsukihime and the future village chief would be the most beneficial to the village. And she says that she's inclined to agree. But that doesn't mean that she feels any type of way for Kiyosama whatsoever. She wants to let Jinta know that she's actually in love with him. And I gotta call a quick timeout because I don't even know, bruh. I couldn't help but notice when writing the script, not so much when I was watching, but especially writing the script, these two were supposed to have grown up as siblings, brother and sister from a young age, like 8, 9, 10 years old, around there. I know Jinta's adopted and all, and he may have failed for Shirayuki at first sight before they built that sibling connection. If they even built a sibling-like connection, I don't know. But still, they got the same pops. As far as he knows, the old pops from back in the day isn't in the picture. He not claiming him as his father. He's claiming Motoharu as his father, and that's Shirayuki's birth father. They're her actual dad. It's just got a strange dynamic to how they got this going on and this romance part of it. I couldn't make the video without pointing it out. I don't know. I'm not rocking with none of this weird stuff, but it ain't too crazy. But it's crazy, but it ain't too crazy. But yeah. She tells Jinta that she's in love with him, and honestly, she says she was ready to abandon her duty as the Itsukihime and run off with him. She didn't want to get together with Kiyosama at all, but knowing Jinta and his duty as a sentinel, she knows that he would never run away with her. He explains that he made an oath to the Itsukihime and to the village, swearing on his life to protect her, not necessarily Shirayuki herself. He says that if they ran away now, it'd neglect both of the decisions that they had made all those years ago, and everything since then would go to waste. So they both agree on following the past and decisions that they had already made. Shirayuki's gonna stay as the Itsukihime, and Jinta's gonna continue his duty as her sentinel, putting the safety of her and the village as a priority. The next thing that we see is Jinta getting an order as sentinel. There are these two demons that were sighted prowling around in the forest outside of the village, and Jinta is to take them out as soon as possible. As everybody makes their leave, Jinta's ready to get straight to action, but is stopped by Kiyomasa of all people. I don't really understand the rationale, but he's upset with Jinta's quote-unquote quiet act because he knows that Jinta knows about the arranged marriage. He knows that Jinta feels some type of way for the Itsukihime, for Shirayuki, but Jinta just walks on. He's already had this conversation with her and feels no need to talk to Kiyomasa. I don't even know what Kiyomasa had in mind when going up to Jinta in the first place, if he wanted to fight over it or feel some type of satisfaction that he knew he was gonna get with the girl that he liked. I don't know. My guy's weird. But after Jinta walks off, we see Suzune at home alone going through some of Jinta's stuff, some of his clothes. She's got this borderline obsession with Jinta, which once again, kinda weird. But as she's hugging his stuff, she hears a voice, somebody in the house. And as she turns around, we see this lady just standing there in the doorway, the same demon who had spotted her earlier. Over with Jinta, he's on a search through the forest for these two alleged demons when he's suddenly attacked out of the blue. But he was able to get his guard up in time, so he didn't end up taking too much damage. And at this point, even the demon's impressed at Jinta's reaction time and awareness. He says that one attack was supposed to take him out from the jump. Jinta's wondering where the other one is, knowing that there were two demons that were sighted around the village, but he explains that his partner has some business inside of the village, so she's not here right now. Jinta realizes that he's got to get there as soon as possible, so he gets straight to action. His first swing does a whole lot of nothing, bruh. But following up into his second swing, Jinta actually manages to pierce through the demon's skin, pushing it through, eventually cutting his arm off completely. But he quickly retaliates with a punch, and Jinta just barely manages to dodge it in time. The demon's not tripping over this little missing arm at all. If anything, he's a little bit excited that he's got somewhat of a proper opponent. He goes off on a little tangent about the lifespans of demons versus humans. Demons live for centuries on end, while humans live for just a small percentage of that. But they manage to live much longer past their physical life by passing down their teachings, their morals, and their techniques to their future generations. Suddenly, he asks Jinta a question. He asks why he decides to wield his sword. What drives him to fight in the way that he does? Jinta gives a simple answer: to protect the ones that he loves. He rushes in as we cut back to Suzune, approached by this lady. She asks Suzune if she knows what she is, and Suzune answers, a demon. She's terrified at this point, but the lady responds, correct, I'm a demon just like you. Suzune's denying it over and over, saying that she's a regular human, not no demon. Realizing that it'll be difficult to get to her with her childlike mentality, the lady calls out what Suzune's holding. She's holding some of her big brother's clothes. She's commending her brother and her relationship with her brother, saying that Jinta must really be amazing to have earned such respect, and Suzune's agreeing. But as she gets down to Suzune's level, she tells her that somebody out there is trying to hurt her dear brother. She asks Suzune to quote unquote use her power in order to help get back at that person. Suzune doesn't know what she's talking about. She doesn't have any powers. She's never been able to use powers or anything. But the lady says it doesn't matter. She just needs to follow her and everything's gonna make sense. She says, I promise I'm not gonna hurt you. Trust me, us demons never lie. Suzune still doesn't want to go, but the lady says maybe this will change your mind. She puts her finger to Suzune's forehead, showing her a vision. This is the demon's power, the ability to have these future visions and share them with people. Suzune is seeing a vision of Shirayuki beginning to undress and make love to this other man. She starts throwing up at even the thought of it, and she just can't believe what she saw. Not only is it crazy that she had to see that, but why is this lady showing this to a little girl anyways? She moving crazy too. But Suzune doesn't want to believe it, and the lady's asking her if she wants to put an end to it before it even happens. Even if she doesn't believe it, the least that she could do is check for the sake of her older brother. The lady knows that bringing up Jinta is the best way to get through to Suzune, and it 100% worked. Back with Jinta, it's looking like he's getting whooped on. He picks his sword back up as this demon approaches him, but this time Jinta's the one that asks a question. He's wondering, why do demons cause harm to humans? The demon explains that every demon has their own life intention. Whatever it may be, they're born with it and must see it through by any means, regardless of who they gotta go through to get to it. And Jinta says if that's the case, then he's gonna show no type of mercy. The demon responds saying that that's a wise choice, as his power is to devour these other demons and gain their abilities, giving him this monstrous strength and the ability to alter his own anatomy. Jinta locks in, rushing him down, but upon the first strike, he already loses his left arm. He keeps it pushing, trying to end it by slashing the demon through the head, but he bites Jinta's sword clean in half. And as he begins to make his move, finally putting Jinta down, he has to improvise, grabbing the remnant of his blade, flying through the air, gripping it, and stabbing it directly through the demon's heart. As the demon falls to the floor, oddly enough, he says, finally, I fulfilled my purpose. He knows that his partner, who has the ability to see the future, has seen, quote unquote, the demon of all demons living peacefully in this town. Their mission was to capture and awaken this beast, and with him serving as a distraction, he knows that he's bought enough time for the deed to have been done. Jinta finally realizes that this demon living peacefully in the village that he's talking about was Suzune. But before he's able to run back and check up on her, the demon that he just defeated gives him a quote unquote parting gift. His arm flies into Jinta's face, gripping it to the point where he can't see nor breathe. And the demon leaves him with one statement. You said that you wield your blade to protect those that you love, but what happens when those that you love are not worthy of your protection? On the other side of the village, Shirayuki and Kiyomasa are up in the shrine. She's ashamed, but is about to get ready to do her thing with Kiyomasa, saying that this is what's best for the village. As the Itsukihime, this is what she has to do. She begins to undress herself in the same way that we saw in the vision before, as she grabs Kiyomasa, but all we hear is, you see, I told you, demons never lie. The lady breaks through the wall and Shirayuki sees the demon, but also sees standing behind her is Suzune. She's shocked that it was true, asking Shirayuki one question: why? Jinta, still out in the forest, managed to survive that surprise attack from the demon, but somehow is waking up to his left arm being back and seemingly completely healed. He instantly starts running back into the village, but everything is on fire. Suzune asks her once again, why? She thought that Shirayuki was in love with Jinta. She thought that they were going to be happy together, but maybe she's just willing to settle for anybody. Shirayuki tries to explain, but Suzune cuts her off. The only thing that Suzune cares about is Jinta, and because of Shirayuki and his duty to protect her as Sentinel, Suzune had barely ever gotten to see him. She's wondering, what's the point? What's the point of all her suffering over these past years? She thought that maybe if Jinta was gonna spend his time with somebody else, then it was okay if he spent it with Shirayuki, because they loved each other and she thought that Shirayuki was a good person. But here she is, going behind his back. She had believed in Shirayuki, but she let her down. Shirayuki just explains that there's only one person that she can be now, the Itsukihime. She has to do this for the village, to preserve the village's legacy. She has no other choice. Out of respect for the village and everybody's actions leading up to this point, this is the only way. But Suzune still doesn't get it. She stands up, ripping the bandages off her face, wondering if everything was on purpose from the jump, if Shirayuki enjoyed making her look like a fool all this time. Shirayuki tries to explain once again, but Suzune's not going. She doesn't want to hear any more talking. The demon lady walks around saying that everything that she said was true. The Itsukihime over here is a no good backstabber. Her life isn't worth protecting, but your dear brother is out there risking his life for hers. She says that there has to be something that they could do to help her brother out, then offers an idea of her own. Maybe it'd be better if the Itsukihime is dead. Suddenly, this black smoke emits from Suzune, filling the entire room. And shortly after, we just see these golden locks of hair flow down. This is Suzune's demon form, her true form, that quote unquote demon of all demons. She says that she doesn't care anymore. It's time for Shirayuki to die. Finally, Kiyomasa steps up to defend her, fulfilling his duty as her sentinel, but the demon lady makes quick work of him. He don't got no business being a sentinel, he mad weak. After packing him up in one little kick, she tells Suzune to pick up that sword and do whatever she wishes. She takes Kiyomasa's body for whatever reason and makes her leave. Now, it's just Shirayuki and Suzune. She unsheathes the sword, saying that this is gonna be fun. Over with Jinta, he's finally making his way up to the shrine after searching everywhere for Suzune, but by the time that he makes it through the door, he was too late. He sees Suzune standing there, laughing maniacally, having decapitated Shirayuki, stabbing her body over and over and over. And without even being able to realize what's going on, Jinta finally draws his sword, rushing in.